What's up, everybody, and welcome to day 5 of our Juniper Networking series. In today's video, we are going to be talking about virtual chassis. So first, let's explain what a virtual chassis is, and next, we're going to explain why we would use a virtual chassis. So a virtual chassis, as Juniper calls it, or a switch stack, as Cisco calls it, is when you combine 2 or more physical switches into one logical unit. So why would we do this? But let's say we have an enterprise that has 60 end computers. Well, if we just purchase one switch, of course we cannot connect 60 computers into this switch. It's physically impossible. But if we form a virtual chassis, now we have 96 ports. And that is because both of these switches are operating as one logical unit. So another benefit that we gain when we do switch stacks is when we push the config to our switch stack, all of the switches within that stack are going to receive that config. So what are the things that we need to be able to form a switch stack? Well, we need to first make sure that both of the switches are running the same firmware. And then after that, we are going to configure VC ports on both of these switches. So we're going to use pick 0 port 0, which is this one right here on the top switch. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom switch. So pick 0 port 0. And then we're going to use an Ethernet cable to connect both of these ports together. And then our switch stack, or virtual chassis as Juniper calls it, should come up. So without further ado, let's hop into this lab. All right, so we're on the back side of both switches, and as you guys can see, we're connected into the top switch. So when we go to the CLI, we should see this switch on top as named as bin switch number 1, and this switch at the bottom is going to be named bin switch number 2, so you guys can see the difference. All right, so we have putty up. Now let's go ahead and log into our root user on this account. Type in our password. All right, cool. So as we can see, well, let's type a CLI first to get out of the free BSD shell. And we can see that this switch on top, like I showed you guys, is named bin switch number 1. So the first command that I want to run is a show version. Like I said, we have to make sure that both of these switches are running the same firmware. So why did it give me a syntax error? Show. That not a command that I can run? Could have swore I could do a show version in operational mode. Yeah, it's right here. Show version. What is going on? Maybe it's just an error because it's still booting. Let's do a show version. Alright, cool. Now it wants to work. Maybe I typed something wrong. You guys let me know. But we can see that this device is running 15.1 R7 S13. Alright, so I'm going to unplug this console cable from switch number 1 and plug it into switch number 2. Alright, let's do a similar thing. Let's do a root, log in, type in our password. Okay, and we can see the version right here, but let's do a CLI and let's go down some so you guys can see a little bit better. Let's do a show version. Let's see if we're going to get that same error. Alright, cool. So it worked this time on the first time. So we can also see on this switch we're running 15.1 R7 S13. So that matches. Both of those match. So that is the first step. So now let's go ahead and configure the VC ports on both of these switches. So since I'm on switch 2, let's do that one first. So let's do a request virtual chassis VC port. And we want to do a set pick slot 0 port 0. All right, and that should be good. Let's say enter there. And now let's do a show. Let's do a show virtual chassis VC port. All right, and we can see right here that pick 0 port 0 on switch 2 is configured to be a VC port, but it is currently down. And it's down because we do not have a layer 1, which is the Ethernet connection for both of these switches. So now I am going to unplug from switch 2. Let's go back into switch 1. All right. And if I do a, let's do a show virtual chassis VC port on this switch just to see what happens. So we do not have the 00 configuration on bin switch number 1. We have it on bin switch number 2, which is right here, but we do not have it on this switch. So now let's make that configuration change. Let's do a request, virtual chassis, VC port, set pick slot 0, port 0. Let's hit enter there. So now if we rerun that command, let's do a show virtual chassis VC port. We can see that it is now configured and it is also down. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is connect both of the 00 ports on both switches and see what happens. Let's see if we get link lights. All right, so I'm going to change the view so you guys can get a better look, and we'll be back. All right, so we have both switches. I have my Ethernet cable. So let's plug one into there and the other one into here. And we have link lights. So now let's hop back onto our terminal emulator and see what we can see. All right, so we're back on our device. Hit enter. And now we have to log back in. So let's go back into root. And it says we're logging into master. So we should have a master switch and a backup switch now. So now, looks like we're getting the command prompt for switch 2. So that looks like it is the master. Okay. So now if we do a show virtual chassis, we can see that this switch right here is our master and this switch right here is our backup. Okay. So we have a virtual chassis on this switch, or we have a virtual chassis with both of these switches, and they are working as one logical unit. And how can we prove that? Well, let's do a show interfaces terse. Do a show interfaces terse and see what happens. So we should have 48 ports, all starting with the switch stack of 0, and then we should also see another 48 ports with the switch stack of 1, because these are operating as one logical unit. So now we have 96 ports, or ports that we can plug into. So let's see. Okay, so now we can see that we ended on 47, 0047, and now we can see 101. So the first number is always the number on the switch stack. The next one is the pick, and the next one is your port. All right, so we have 48 more ports that we have now because these are operating as one logical unit. Let's test this theory. Let's unplug from this switch and plug it in this one to see if they are operating. And this is another way that we can see if we have our virtual chassis. So you see I just pulled the connection, but it's plugged in like we didn't switch switches, and we did it because both of these switches are operating as one logical switch. So it's automatically, no matter which switch I connect into, it's going to log me in as the master switch. So that is a virtual chassis. So I appreciate you guys watching day 5 of our Juniper Networking series. I hope to see you in day 6. Until then, peace out.